Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Mastering the Art of Empathy, this month's Green Room. We are your grateful hosts as usual, Erica Cayley. I'm the president of Guest Service Solutions. I've been in this business for a while. I have played with empathy for a long time myself, and I'm still learning. Um, a 5-year-old teaches you a lot about being empathetic, even when you have no idea what's going on. So, yeah, still learning and growing, as is our solutions coach, Yolanda Martinez, who's with us today as well. I'm going to say hello. Hi. So she has been very active with so many of you this season, and she's heard quite a few different scenarios. And I think both of us thought this was a really appropriate topic for this time of the year, especially in February. It's really hard sometimes to create empathy when you are just tired. The ski season hasn't been all that great. February, for some of you, happens to be a very quiet time. And that's usually when employees might have more problems than usual. So they're knocking on your door with a complaint or an issue about maybe how many covers they had, or how they didn't like that section, or how they don't understand their commission structure. And suddenly you're trying to be empathetic to this, and it can be hard sometimes. So I think both of us agreed that this was a great topic for this time of the year, and it might give you that extra little injection of motivation, so that the next time you have a situation that comes up, you can handle that with grace and with ease. Empathy itself is defined as a social and emotional skill that helps us feel and understand the emotions, circumstances, intentions, thoughts, and needs of others, such that we can offer sensitive, perceptive, and appropriate communication and support. I think this is such a great definition that I just recently found in a great book. And I wanted to share this with all of you and get you thinking about what this means to us, specifically in the luxury hospitality world. We all do have to kind of work with empathy, not just with our guests, but of course, like I said, also with our employees. But why? And to me, the big reason why is because the better we are at creating empathy, the better we are at providing hospitality as well as providing service. And as you know, there is a difference. And in my experience, especially with the luxury sector, the luxury hospitality sector, the more a team focuses on empathy, which is a very hot topic right now, by the way. It's something that really speaks to the emotional intelligence of a culture, the emotional intelligence of the people that work there, et cetera. The more emotionally intelligent and empathetic a team can be, the more luxury service can be possible. So think of things like employees being hired for personality. Well, I don't think you can have a personality unless you're empathetic or have a passion for service. And that to exceed service standards, it requires a certain level of savvy to know what somebody else needs, not necessarily what you need. And this was a great schematic that was shared with us back in July by Jane Griswold, who's a friend of ours, who works also with a lot of luxury hotels and resorts. She also shared with us this great quote, which really says that moments of ecstasy, which we're all looking to create for our guests as well as for our employees, we can set up the conditions so that those peak experiences, those awesome experiences, are more likely. But we have to know how to create empathy first before that can occur. Empathy is a skill we're all learning as we go. Like I said, I'm learning it every day myself, but I've been learning a little bit more about it lately. And as you might recall, in quite a few of our past workshop events, we've focused on things like generous listening, using a cushioning technique. We have talked about how we reflect and mirror emotions. And this is an opportunity for us to kind of put it all together and give you some real tools and techniques that you can take away that are going to help you to introduce this idea of empathy, or maybe put some structure around how you create empathy. So let's start with a quiz. How empathetic are you? I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I'm going to ask you to just take a little sort of a mental score sheet, or write down, make two columns, a yes column and a no column. And if you can answer yes to the question, put a check in the yes side. A no, put a check in the no side. So here's the first question. I tend to know how others are feeling, even or especially if they're trying to hide it. I tend to avoid conflict because I don't want to hurt others or make them feel embarrassed. I do not need to see others' faces to know their emotions or to read their emotions. I often mimic the mannerisms, accents, and body language of others without meaning to. I do that all the time.
Me too.
I tend to think about interpersonal issues by imagining myself in the place of those involved. Are you taking this quiz, Yolanda?
Oh, I sure am.
Oh, I love it. Okay, good. I have a very easy time reading between the lines, under the surface, and behind the obvious. When I make a social blunder, I am extremely disturbed and I work hard to make things right again. I feel the emotions of others viscerally, as if the emotions belong to me. I consider the needs and feelings of others in decisions I make, often to the point of ignoring my own needs and feelings. I love to watch interactions, especially when the people or animals are unaware of me, like drama, movies, literature, well-paced stories. I'm good with shy people, children, and animals. I often feel tender, protective feelings toward others, even toward complete strangers. When I'm in conflict with others, I tend to talk deeply about it with third parties so that I can sort out the many issues that have led to the conflict. I love to talk about and think about interpersonal issues and social structures. I often need to get away from the needs of others and recharge my emotional batteries. I'm deeply sensitive to things like sounds, colors, textures, scents, shapes, and spatial relationships between objects. I'm able to stay present for myself as well as for others in the face of intense emotions like grief, rage, and despair. I tend to approach problems tangibly, using my hands and body as I think and walk through issues and what it involves. I gesture a lot when I communicate, and my face is often very animated, and I'm very aware of the personal space of others. Okay, so what was your score, Yolanda?
I don't know. I feel like I'm an emotional wreck.
Did you take notes?
I'm
Did you
over
score
here
it?
with 12 or 13. I don't know what that means, but
Really? Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I was
So,
laughing through half of them because it's things that my spouse points out to me constantly.
yes. Yes, and I think a lot of us are like this. So what was your score? If you were a 1 to a yes, a 1 to a 6 in yeses, you might be somewhat low in empathic ability, and it's going to be hard for you to maybe understand why someone might be feeling the way that they're feeling. So to be able to have some technology or some skills that you can lean on are going to really help you to elevate and meet the needs of the people that you communicate with. If you're 7 to 13, you're right in the sweet spot. Yolanda, you're in the sweet spot.
About a 13. I'm gonna go with
Okay,
that.
that's good. That's good. So you are able to empathize without letting it consume you. And that's a very big deal, especially for those of us that are maybe in very high touch areas. You have to have that right balance of empathy as well as the ability to manage your emotions. 14 to 20 yeses means you might even be what's considered hyper empathetic. And that means that you are the kind of person that just so deeply feels things sometimes that you cannot function. So we all have a score. Does that mean that you're destined for a disastrous life filled with counseling if you're hyper empathetic? No, it does not. It's a skill that we're all learning as we go. So if you're learning it, that means your guests are learning it, and your kids are learning it, and your boss is learning it, and your coworker is learning it, and that person that sits next to you in reservations is learning it, and the guy that works in housekeeping is also learning it. So for you to be emotionally aware enough that everyone's learning it as they go gives you power. It gives you a leg up that you're able to use in a very different way. So what does it mean now? Now you know your score. It means that people see a situation like this very differently, depending on who they are and how empathetic they are. So if I asked you what you saw here, we would get a ton of different answers. And I'll tell you what I see here, and then that might give you kind of a different insight. I see a couple that are both standing at the front desk. I see their hands close to each other, which tells me that they're in a committed relationship. But it also, the way that they're holding their hands and they're both touching the desk at the same time, it's a bit of a power struggle that I see there. And I'm not sure why yet. I see her looking up at him with the kind of like the, are you serious kind of face? And that to me also could indicate that there might be some conflict there or a disagreement of some sort. She's over him, and some people might feel a little threatened by that, especially if there is already some underlying conflict that might exist. I see that all three of them have their hands on the desk. So to me, that tells me that all three of them are trying to get some power at the same time. I see the front desk staff member, the female that's with them. She's not looking at them. She's looking down at the paper. And that sometimes can indicate to me, can we move this along? Whatever you two are talking about can probably wait. Can we do what I'm supposed to do right now? So she's feeling like she has to push for her own agenda. She has a smile, but it's not really a real smile. It's kind of like a fake, it's my hospitality smile. More like a service smile, like I'm supposed to smile. And then we have this guy in the back, a front desk staff member who's not looking at them, who's not facing them, and who is also not facing his coworker. And I see him as being cold, disengaged, not wanting to engage, in fact, trying to create a wall around himself so that nobody talks to him. That's what I see. Raise your hand if you saw any of that as well. Yolanda, did you see any of that?
Well, it looks to me like the couple might be, like hovering over each other. Who knows? Maybe they're fighting about a price or a charge or, um, who knows,
Mm-hmm.
directions even.
Yeah.
And you have the woman that's helping them, not really sure what she's feeling, but that other guy, if they are having some sort of conflict, I would be annoyed that he wasn't maybe coming up with a suggestion
Mm-hmm.
or just showing any sort of concern for what we're going through.
Yeah. So it's no surprise to me that comments like this come when you see or are in the middle of a situation like this. And then you know that your coworkers go, I don't understand. Why would anyone say that we were being rude and condescending? What did we do? And oftentimes it's these little things that happened or that we didn't pick up on, perhaps a power struggle that was going on between the couple and not honoring the dance that was then required. Is that all your problem? No, of course it's not all your problem. But I will say that, excuse me, we have guests that come with all sorts of things that we can see, right? What they're wearing, how they're moving. Maybe sometimes we can even determine their religion. I mean, if they have an ashy cross on their head, we know that they're a Christian on Ash Wednesday. Maybe we know their ethnicity. But there's 90% of the game that's happening underneath that we don't know about. And honestly, it really doesn't matter sometimes in the moment. We don't have time to react to, so tell me about your relationship with your parents. I don't know that. I don't need to know that, but I do need to do something to create empathy in this moment. Why? Because we know that emotions are a driver during a guest stay. We talk about this constantly because it is so very important. And that's what makes your culture. When your insides match your outsides and you don't ignore this, what could otherwise be considered very innocuous, benign, everyday behavior that we see. This does look very everyday, doesn't it? I'm sure you've seen this at your front desk often, but something's happening. And if you don't pick up on it, you miss it. And you slowly chip away at the service culture that you're trying to create. And we know that almost all of the consumer conversations that we see in online reviews are about people in some way, shape, or form. So without it, you're not doing it. So here are 6 ways that we can treat our guests in a way that they didn't even realize that they wanted to be treated yet. The 6 steps to being empathetic. They are in order: emotion contagion, empathic accuracy, emotion regulation, perspective taking, concern for others, and perceptive engagement. So I'm going to briefly touch on these, but we'll give you a better definition in the handout material. These are in some ways all things that we do, and sometimes we do them subconsciously, but sometimes we do them consciously. And to me, the goal is to be consciously competent in how we're showing empathy and using empathy, specifically as leaders. Because when we are more consciously competent about showing empathy and using empathy, then our staff is able to do the same in kind, particularly with their guests. So the first being emotion contagion. To me, emotion contagion is really just, it is innate. It's when I see somebody crying, I want to console them, or I might want to cry myself. And it's, if you see someone sleeping, it makes you yawn or tired. Or if you see somebody who's stressed out, it makes you stressed out. And sometimes emotion contagion can be a thing that we, even though we do it innately, we're not maybe recognizing it, or we're trying to block it and saying, no, I need to be professional right now. It's just too bad that this guest is frustrated. That's the rule. That's how it is. And that's sort of our way of blocking it off and not wanting to accept the emotion contagion. And so my suggestion first is to accept that emotion. And I'm going to give you some words that you can use to really accept that emotion. But empathy, like I said, if it's a skill, it means it begins with allowing yourself to be a human that is able to practice the emotion contagion and try on the feelings of other people. So we read and interpret verbals and nonverbals. I mean, this is an age-old form of research that says that our overall likability is defined 55% by our nonverbals, 38% by our tone of voice, and 7% for the words that we use. If you're in a telephone environment, your likability is determined 80% by your tone of voice and 20% by the words that you use. So chances are, if you hear an emotion or see an emotion, or you think that an emotion is present, the odds are high that it is there or that you're sensing something. And this is where I think the second step becomes very important, which is that empathic accuracy, being able to determine whether or not you're right. And it's really just as simple as, I'm sensing that you're frustrated. Am I getting that right? Or it seems to me as though this is a really scary situation for you. Or I'm getting the impression that you would really like to talk to a few other people so that we can solve this problem. So being accurate with whatever that feeling is that you're seeing or hearing, or at least making sure that you know you're accurate, is going to be the second step to all of this. So being able to accurately identify and understand emotional thoughts, words, intentions is going to be, I think, most important, and something that we as leaders and managers can help to influence and show our staff how to do that instead of going, nope, sorry, I can't look at it, I can't think about it. The third is emotion regulation. How many times have you been in a situation with a guest or a coworker or an employee that comes in and says, hey, I know I just started on Tuesday, but you know what? I've done a really good job since Tuesday. Can I get a raise? And the first thing you want to do is like, are you joking?
It gets her love and
laugh. Right. But we have to know how to regulate our own emotions and at least get some tips behind us to be able to do that. So here are some that I've heard from hospitality professionals for a long time, and they might help you as well. The first one is breathe. Don't sigh. There is a difference Your staff can hear it. Your guests can hear it, especially over the phone, because remember, it's tone of voice. 80% of your likability comes through that. So a sigh expresses a certain tone. So breathe through your nose. Don't sigh. Um, Using their perception as your reality will significantly help you as well. Excuse me. I think often we feel like we have to defend our stance, or we have to correct a guest or correct a way of thinking. Try on that perception first, or at least seek to understand before you move on. So that way you're able to get yourself in the shoes of that other person. It helps you to regulate emotions. Knowing that you have control over a situation, you have more control over a situation than you think you do. You have control over your own emotions. I can't control the way somebody else feels about something, but I can control the way that I think and the way that I act. Think about what is in it for you to fix it, or what's in it for you to solve the problem, or to listen, or to be empathetic. Is it that we're going to create a loyal guest from this? We are going to have a guest that definitely thinks differently about our company or about our destination. We're going to have so many guests that now want the catered chalet experience that if we make this work, it's a slam dunk. So think about what's in it for you to fix this. Express yourself is a fantastic way to regulate your emotions. Social psychologists will say that over and over again. Tell people how you're feeling about it. I'm frustrated. This disappoints me. I'm so confused myself. When you can do that, it calms you down. It allows you to own you a little bit more. Think big picture. Again, not just what's in it for you, but what's in it for the organization, or what's the higher calling, the nobler cause here. It's just the right thing to do. This is my good karma point for the day. Whatever. Think about what's in it, thinking big picture like that. Don't try, just do. Here's what I can do. Guests get more frustrated when they hear you say, I'm going to try. Don't try, just do it. Words are x-rays. Words mean something. This is a great example of that. Base camp to Yellowstone? Big deal. Maybe you should call this base camp to boredom. I'm trapped in meetings all day and this is a drag. I hear so much in this. I hear a guest that is a hostage at a meeting. I hear a guest that's only feeling teased by the fact that they're in a beautiful destination and they have no way to experience it or have a good time. I hear somebody who is maybe not even interested in this meeting. I hear perhaps a guest who, an employee of a company that's really not interested in even being part of the company. So I hear so much here that we can use as hospitality professionals that gives us a better opportunity to not only show empathy, but influence the guest experience in a positive way. Number 2, change the story. I love this one to regulate emotions. If you see a guest that comes in at 10 o'clock at night and nobody was there to help them, they got a check-in packet that was in the mailbox with like the special super secret code and they called security, and then the next morning you call them and they say, well, yeah, everything's fine, thank you very much, bye. You might at first think, well, he was rude. But if you change the story and you think about it, you might say, well, no wonder. He hasn't had a single human being help him out up until this point. He hasn't had any contact with any one of us. He had a very stressful travel day. He's probably managing all of those kids in the airport and feeling like his vacation is never going to start. He hasn't officially arrived to the vacation part of his vacation yet. He's still trying to figure out logistics. Hey, I have solutions now. So to change the story allows you to regulate your emotions and open yourself up to what the real possibility might be there. And finally, to regulate emotions, be grateful, but expecting gratitude. guests aren't going to thank you. And we in the hospitality business, we just crave the love. And the less you expect it, the more you won't be disappointed. And the more you'll have in you, the more capacity that you'll have to create empathy, believe it or not. Expect the ingratitude, and it makes it a lot easier. I'm going to pause for just a second because this is pretty meaty, this emotion regulation, and this can, we're going to make miniature fixed videos from this series in and of itself. But I wanted to give you a chance to ask questions or share a story. When have you done one of these and it's really worked for you?
I like no, try, only do. Definitely, here's what I can do for you. I've heard that. I've used that. It's not over-promising. So I think that's giving an opportunity to wow the guest.
So how do you feel that that helps you to regulate your own emotions?
I think in a situation like that, you're setting yourself up for success. If it makes a guest more comfortable to only tell them the things that you actually can do for them, then it's easier for you to not get frustrated when they have a quick rebuttal. Why are you going to try? Just do it, right?
Yeah.
So you're setting yourself up for then a smoother sailing in the communication between the two of you. So you aren't going to have as much reason for pushback.
I think
have
so
that
too.
anger, frustration, emotion get in your way.
I think that's true.
It's about setting a boundary. And often we're always in the business of saying yes. Yes. You can say yes and still set a boundary. And that often is really what guests are looking for. They get really confused and frustrated sometimes when things feel so loosey-goosey and there are so many different shades of gray that happen that they cannot process, okay, well, what can you do exactly? This doesn't feel definitive enough for me. Number 4 is perspective taking. And this is a good example again. Is my screen sharing again?
It was, and it just went away.
It was, and that it's like it's stopped.
We just started a new system, and I apologize. We're trying to figure it all out. But
yeah, I have a feeling that it's actually weather related here in my world.
It was working.
Yeah. It says I'm sharing my screen now, though. Do you see that?
No, we see you. We can only see both of you.
Okay, thank you.
I love your white dangly earring.
Oh.
She's fancy like that, isn't she?
Thanks.
I know I can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
I think Erica.
Yeah, I'm still getting over.
She's got a bit of a funk going on over there. She's been coughing left and right, so she's trying to shield our precious ears.
Okay.
From the symphony of noises that she's been making today.
Yeah, you don't want it.
There we go. It's loading. Are you having spotty weather there?
Yes, it's definitely something. I'm not sure what it is today. So I apologize, everybody. This is really unprecedented in our webinar world.
It's the technology frontier. It's a little rough out there.
I know. That's how I'm feeling too. Thank you for empathizing, Robin.
Oh, perfect.
It's what you get. Well, the other thing I was going to add is it's interesting how you broke that down. What's important in each of the different interactions, and when you get to email, it's sort of like, then you're down to words.
Yes.
And you better choose your words wisely, right?
Yes, because it can all be misconstrued, can it?
Right. I would say most times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Most times, right. So as we look at perspective taking in and of itself, I think this is a great way that we can be more selective with our words because we're going to pinpoint the emotion that we're actually hearing. Here's a great situation, right? Imagine you're seeing this happen in an airport. What do you think is happening here? Just tell me, what do you think?
Flights delayed, canceled.
Couldn't get an upgrade.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Flights delayed, canceled, couldn't get an upgrade. And then what's she doing? What is she thinking? What is she feeling?
Which one are we talking about?
Sorry, she being the gate agent.
Looks like she's trying to diffuse.
She's trying to
She's
diffuse.
trying to hear them. Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
reacting. Her hands are flaring around.
Yes. So I see here again, like I was showing earlier, I see a power struggle again where he's going like this with the tickets and she's going like this with her hands, which is one of those universal gestures of can't we come to some sort of an agreement? And she's in the back with another hand. So there's a lot of hands going on in this one, and they still don't have far angular distance. I mean, she's behind a counter. She hasn't come out from behind the counter either. So there's a lot of body language things that are going on here. And for her to put her hands down for a second, get out from behind the counter and get next to them instead of facing them is going to completely change the dynamic of this entire conversation. Conversationally, then, we can use something like a cushion. And a cushion is the way that we're able to identify the feeling that somebody's having, to call out the situation that's happening, and to say, am I right? Am I getting this? Am I reading the situation right? It's scary when you're told that you aren't able to get to your flight destination, or I can only imagine how frustrated you might be, or the fact that the fact that we don't have any availability over that time period, I would imagine, is probably giving you a little anxiety. So being able to call it out, even if even if it feels a little obvious to you, like of course that's what's going on, to be able to pinpoint, paraphrase, and pause allows your guest to stop for a second and say, you know, it's not that it's scary. It's just that I'm disappointed. I really wanted to bring my kids for Christmas. And I wanted this to be sort of like that magical moment that we all had. And now I'm feeling like I can't do that. So you'll get a different quality of conversation to come out of it when you can use a cushion like this.
My experience with the gate agent when you have that conversation is that they don't do those things.
They do not.
They start typing messages in the computer, and then you get extra security checks when you go through the gate.
That's exactly right. And you feel like for the rest of the time you're in the airport, they're like this.
Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been through Puerto Rico in a while, and I still get, funny looks.
Yes. So when I say use a cushion, it allows a clearing to be created where you're saying, I am trying on your perspective. There's nothing more frustrating than waiting. I know the feeling myself. I am so sorry. I'm going to expedite. When you try it on, and you're probably noticing this more and more in some of our world-class organizations. I mean, I was just in the Apple store a couple of weeks ago, and it sounded so fake, though, the way the guy was doing it. Like, yeah, it's like, I can totally understand how your life must be, like with these kids. And, I saw that kid over there playing with the iPad, and yeah, it looks like it's like a lot, right? I'm looking at him going, what? So to be able to use a cushion and actually work at it and think about it helps you to put on that perspective in a more authentic way than just trying to force it. Concern for others is number 5. I mean, when I think of concern for others, it's one thing to say it by kind of trying on the perspective, and then it's another to show it or to use it. I mean, if I were showing concern for others in a situation like this, I would say something like, please let me take your bags for you and let's take you to your room right away. Or I might say something like, well, it is 4 o'clock and you've had a very long travel day. So why don't I introduce you to Ted, the bartender, Ted, the bartender, and he'll get your vacation started right away. So having a concern for others is not something that's necessarily um, having a concern for others is not something that we necessarily don't do. We all do have concern for others. It's a matter of how we show our concern for others. So that fine, yes,
I wanted to ask because I'm trying to advocate for a lot of our phone hospitality professionals, such as Robin was saying.
sure.
So showing concern for you. I
Hmm.
know you've had a long day. Let's expedite this and let's introduce you while you're waiting to our bartender. Let him make you a drink. How do you show your concern for someone over the phone?
Over the phone, I almost feel is a little bit easier because I'm able to pick up on tone of voice. I'm able to pick up on what's going on in the background. It sounds like you're in the middle of carpool and you have a lot of different things going on at this time. So I understand that because it's really busy right now, it might be better for me to at least do some of the legwork and let's revisit this tomorrow. You want it at this time of the day, you want to be 100% there for your kids. So let me do the legwork and then we'll connect about this tomorrow. And I'm going to put together a really good recommendation for you that you are going to adore. How does that feel for you? What do you think of that idea? That could be a
I
way.
think
Go ahead.
that's a great point, but I think there can be a lot of guesswork on the phone. So
Hmm.
teaching your sales agents to investigate, is this a good time? Do you have time to look into this?
Yes.
Like, getting them to use the website as a selling tool. You don't know until you ask them, are you sitting in front of a computer and would you have time to look at a few options right now? If you get that permission and you get that opportunity, then I think it really opens the door to you to sell without it being selling. You're the tour guide. You're walking them around the 3D tour and that kind of stuff. But you don't get there unless you ask those kind of questions, and it's opening people's minds to don't just ask for the dates and how many people. Investigate. What kind of circumstance are we in? Like you said, listening for those clues or cues, and then that can guide the conversation better.
I love what you're suggesting here because I was just recently thinking about how many commitments we actually do ask for from guests in a reservation sale. And the number one thing we don't ask for is a commitment for time.
Right.
We tend to forget that they don't have a lot of time. And if we don't ask for their time, even though Joan is one of the best picture painters in the world, if she doesn't ask for time, guests are like, yeah, okay, that's awesome. Can you just send me a quote?
Right.
So to really, I think, show concern for others means that you're asking for a commitment for time. You're asking for a commitment to maybe change their mind and think about something else. I know you wanted a Christmas memory holiday. What if we just push this a little bit one way or the other? We have so many guests that actually come 5 days earlier because the value is so much better and they don't have to share Steamboat with everybody else. So
Yep.
comparatively speaking, you're going to save quite a bit on the overall. I think it's a much better value for your vacation. What do you think? So asking for that commitment is, I think, a way that we do show concern for others in a way that I think not every brand really does. I mean, I think boutique brands like yours do. I don't think that every brand does.
Well, I don't think every brand has an opportunity to. I think we have a tremendous opportunity to do that. Sure enough.
When you touch guests from the beginning to the middle to the end the way that you do, and there's a personality because I know this human being, then yes, I think you do have an opportunity. And as long as you're able to kind of streamline the process and make it easy for your staff to be able to touch the guests that way. And I think having products like Navis is helping, I think, in a big way to be able to do that. Then
Yep.
I think it's definitely moving in the right direction, and it's getting better and better.
Definitely.
So last but not least is that perceptive engagement. And to me, what perceptive engagement is my ability to act on what I'm seeing and what I've just identified and what I was drawn toward, but dealing with it in a way that I don't want to be treated, in a way that they don't even know that they want to be treated yet. I look at this situation, and not all of you are in culinary or in the food and beverage world, but for those of you that have been or have touched it, I like this picture because it's showing a few different things to me. What this shows me is that you have, this looks like it might be a manager or a director level person that's sharing information with 3 of his staff members, front of house and back of house. And what I see here are 3 different reactions to what it is that this manager is sharing. We have the gentleman on the left who looks super engaged, although he might be the lights are on but nobody's home. He might just have sort of that look like, yeah, it sounds great, boss. Thanks a lot. And then we have the lady in the middle who's taking notes, but sometimes the note taking is a sign of insecurity, or it's a sign of maybe defensiveness. I'm not sure if I'm going to need this information or not, but I'm going to write this down. If I don't have all of this information, this could become a problem later. I need to show him that I care and I'm listening, but I don't even know what he's really talking about. And then you have the gentleman on the right who looks like, whatever. This is like the 3rd time we've had a staff meeting and you've done nothing about it. So, okay, I'll just stand here and listen. So the way that this manager then reacts to all 3 of these people, in not a way that he feels comfortable with, but a way that each one of them is needed, is essential to empathy. It's putting what you're thinking you're feeling and what you're thinking you're seeing right into action. So the guy on the left, I might ask him some bigger questions about what it is that we just shared and say, okay, so share with me how you think you might apply this information, or just stop for a second and confirm his learning. The woman in the middle, I'm going to ask her I'm not going to ask her some questions. I'm going to say, how do you feel about this? What do you think about this? Tell me a little bit more about what you think a plan should be moving forward. And the guy on the right, I'm going to just make sure that I'm owning what has perhaps happened in the past. I get the feeling that you're skeptical, Tom. And Tom's going to tell you, yeah, I actually am. Well, thanks. I'm grateful that you told me. So perspective engagement allows me to empathize with each person in the way that they need me to, not necessarily in the way that I feel comfortable with. Translate this into an interaction with your guests over the phone, with your staff members. It's kind of that same thing. When you're able to go through the first 5 steps, it makes number 6, I think, a lot easier for all of us. So I think in closing, my thoughts here are that excellent service and caring hospitality are vastly different. Hospitality is about the way that you make somebody feel. And in our world now, luxury hospitality, the luxury experience, to me, is all about empathy, and it's all about emotional intelligence and being able to engage with that guest in a way that they want us to be engaging with them, or the way that they don't even know yet that they want to be engaged with. Again, it's a skill that we're all learning as we go. And as long as we're all giving each other the space to learn, and maybe we're even saying, hey, I'm trying a new thing. I'm trying to be more observant about what I'm seeing. I'm trying to try on perspectives a little bit more. So help me out. If I ask you a question about how you're feeling, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm trying to just help you more and be more helpful. So as we kind of close it up today, I'll let you know that our next month's green room is about how to let your guests win, finding the win in guest service recovery situations. So hopefully you will make time to join us next March 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 12 Mountain Time. If you're interested in learning more about some of the other future green rooms, please let me know.